Hey guys, Martin here from the Weekend Warrior and Tactical Sports International. Gonna do a video today for you getting into the start of Milsim season. At the moment it is March 2025 and we are now about 7 or 8 weeks away from the first events of the year, and we then basically have a Milsim event pretty much one if not two of every month through till September this year, and then we head off to New Zealand for airsoft. So literally right now we're in the old lockdown thing for Tropical Cyclone Alfred. We've been at home bored for 2 days, so I figured I'll get some videoing done. I do apologize if there's any background noise. The kids and the family are bored watching movies in the next room. So I'm here in the garage. Thought I would start a little bit of filming for what could probably be quite a long video, because I want to cover a fair bit, and because why not? So instead of breaking it down into multiple videos, I'll probably start this one and upload it all as one. So to start with, as I said, we're coming into Milsim season right now. I do have tickets for sale online for Royal Flush on the 3rd and 4th of May out at Buccas Outpost. Now you will also find there is tickets available right now for Mjolnir Gelsim for White Tiger 3, which is also being held at Buccas Outpost. They're towards the end of July. And I'm pretty sure there are tickets for sale now, if not going on sale very soon, for Gelsim Ranch. I always get the name wrong, something like Milosevic Insurrection, something like that, and also their in-country events. So tickets are literally on sale for almost all events, if not becoming on sale very soon, right now. So grab your tickets and we will see you on the field. Pretty exciting. I think this year is probably going to be one of the biggest, probably, if not easily the biggest season we can have for Milsim and Battlesim, Milsoft and live action roleplay kind of events we've ever had in Southeast Queensland, which is fantastic. So let's cover a little bit about the events first before we start talking about some stuff to take to the events. So of course I'll talk about my event first, Royal Flush, 3rd and 4th of May. We are running a full 29-hour event. So start at 9 AM in the morning, with briefings from 7 and running all the way through to 2 PM on Sunday afternoon. Now, our event, we call it a Battlesim event. You don't have to play all through the night. Not mandatory, because we want you to play the game you can play, the game you want to play, the game you feel comfortable to play, and what you enjoy. A lot of people aren't comfortable doing stuff at night. A lot of people really need to have a break. So we really encourage you and want you to play all of the event, because that's what we're creating, that's what we want the event to be. But for those of you that really need a break and need to get back to the safe zone, say for night hours or all night or some of the night, if you want to play into the night but sleep in the safe zone and then go back onto the field, all fair and well, do as you please. So we call our event Battlesim. We don't call it a Milsim because we're not trying to do full military simulation. Okay, that's not what our event is. If you want that event, go along to White Tiger 3 by Mjolnir Gelsim at Buccas Outpost at the end of July. Their event is an all-night event as well this year. They're running, I think it's a full 24-hour or slightly longer. But I'm going to use the word mandatory, that you have to play through the night. You essentially need a permission from your section leader or your faction commander to re-enter the safe zone, and you need to kind of give your reasoning, which could be you've had a blaster failure and you need to go back to the safe zone to swap it out, or you've had a major gear failure, or let's say you simply have to go and have a break, or you need to go to the bathroom and you want to do a poo in the portaloos. Don't think they're going to say no, but they do want you to qualify or quantify your reasoning, because their event, they are really pushing for the most Milsim event, I guess you could say, we've had probably since Combat Simulation Operation Tempest in 2020. So different kinds of events, come to both. They're 3 months apart. Great, come to both. As I said, for Royal Flush, my event or our event at Buccas, we want you to play the game you want to play. We want to try and have more firefights throughout the day. It's a domination-based event, so you've always got 2 domination points during the day that you can fight for and control. That will drop down to 1 domination point throughout the night. So 1 is open for the full 29 hours, start to finish, by the last 2 hours. And 1 is open for daylight hours only. So there's always something to fight for. at Royal Flush, it is essentially mandatory, it's critical to protect your base. It's also essentially going to be extremely valid to attack your enemy's base. For the simple reason is both teams are given their team flag. Both teams have a specific spot the team flag has to be hung. And if your team loses your flag, i.e. if the enemy steal your flag, then you got to get it back. If you don't have your team flag at the end, it's an instant loss. Not that we want to drive the game to be winners and losers, but we feel there's got to be some form of competitive edge, if you want to call it that. So protect your flag. Fight for domination points. Try and capture your enemy's flag and hold it till the end of the game. If you do capture the enemy's flag, you have to take it back to your base. They have to know where they can find it to get it back. And then, of course, there's some missions. There's Buccas Bucks, there's currency, there's missions. You essentially can't win the game just by winning domination points for the game. You have to have some mission-based points and currency to win the event. Okay, so as I said, Royal Flush, early May, White Tiger 3, end of July. In between there, we've got a couple, I believe, at Milsim Ranch, which is the playing field at Mjolnir, which is pretty much just southeast a little bit of Buccas. And there is also some events further up north as well. I think there's one in Gladstone and even all the way up at Cairns this year. I don't know much about them. They're not really on my radar. But yeah, so Royal Flush tickets are on sale now, $140, flat rate. There's no changing of rates. We really ideally would like you to be getting there Friday afternoon or Friday evening to get your registration done and check-in done Friday evening. And if you have to arrive Saturday morning, you've got to get there early because we're starting briefings from 7 and doing team stuff from 7. So if you're not there, you're going to be behind the 8 ball and you can't enter the game at 9 unless you've had a briefing. Before we kind of go any further, I would really like to thank our event sponsors. So, of course, we have to thank Nuketown Gold Coast, the gelballing site here at Beanley. Without Nuketown, we literally wouldn't run the event. We couldn't run the event because they provide us with insurance. Without the insurance policy, we simply would not be running this event. So Nuketown is, of course, our primary sponsor. Secondary sponsor is Urban Gelball. Urban has sponsored us or assisted us with the event since day dot, so 2023 and 2024, with a money assistance that helps us with the Portaloos and that kind of stuff. So huge thank you to Tim and the team at Urban Gelball. Again, can't thank you enough. So please check out Urban Gelball and Nuketown GC. Our third sponsor is a brand new in the last 6 months, Gelblaster store on the Gold Coast called Cyber Trigger. Now Ryan is doing a lot to sponsor different things, I believe, at the moment to try and get his business name out there. They are the importer. They are part of the ENC Gelball and Airsoft branding. So fairly new product in the country. ENC blasters have been here, I would say, for 8 months to a year maybe. Really nice product. So predominantly their range at the moment is just the M4 pattern style rifle and also the SIG MCX pattern. I believe there is other types coming in the Soviet style, AK style, etc. But they predominantly have M4 pattern rifles and they sell also AW pistols and accessories. So absolutely fantastic stuff. I really love their stuff, and what is super cool is they have got the bigger body, not just your normal AR-15 size receivers and magazines. They have got the bigger style rifles that suit the heavy calibers, so the 308. So where this is an AR-15 pattern, the AR-10, which is the bigger 308 style, and then the SR-25, so the M4s that look more like a DMR style rifle. So they're a bigger receiver. What's cool about them is, of course, they generally have a longer barrel, but they have a bigger cylinder as well in the gearbox, so more volume. When you try and put a long barrel on one of these normal V2 gearboxes, there's not enough air coming out of the gearbox to fill the barrel, and you lose performance as a result. With the big ENC style cylinders, you can run that big barrel with full cylinder volume. So a huge thank you to Cyber Trigger. They are helping us with probably around about $1,000 worth of prizes for our prize giveaway for the event at Royal Flush. And we also have Cybercat gels. Got a pack right here. Summercat Summercat gels, my mistake. Summercat Gels Australia, again, are a relatively new product in the Australian scene. Their gels are, at the moment, without a doubt, the best gels on the market. They've got everything from your normal clear, not clear, but your translucent, super hard, frosty gels, down to some slightly softer in white, pink, blue, green, and they've got some glow gels as well, which is not quite there, but definitely starting to become good. So Summercat Gels have offered everyone that has a Royal Flush ticket to get a cheaper price on their gels, and they're also giving everybody a free pack of gels at the event as well, as a little bit of a support for the event. So now that's done, let's carry on. So as we said, Royal Flush tickets, $140. I believe at the moment Mjolnir tickets are $120, maybe it's gone to $130 now. They've had a stepping scale of price. Currently Royal Flush tickets are not selling amazingly in that everyone's been buying tickets for other events, and my honest opinion is they're probably buying the cheaper ones initially, as in Mjolnir that started with a lower price. And I'm hoping people come back and grab some Royal Flush tickets. So we've sold about 50 something. We sold about 35 in the first week or two, and then very slowed right down since the other ticket sales have gone on. But we've still got 2 months, so hopefully we get some good numbers. I like 2023. I would really like 70 players to kick off Royal Flush. 100 would be ideal. Absolutely my perfect number. Last year we had 167. We dealt with it. We can do it. But we don't need huge numbers to run the event. We don't run the event to make money. In fact, you don't make money from these events, but we'd need 70 players to kind of break even by the time you've done the toilets and the medics and the insurances and all that kind of stuff. All right, so anyway, let's get on with some stuff. So Milsim, Battlesim, endurance style events, anything that's, let's say, longer than 12 hours, you need a bit more kit and gear than you do for a normal Gelblaster day. So anything out at somewhere like Buccas Outpost or Milsim, Gelsim Ranch is not just a skirmish day. You don't need to take 10 litres worth of gels and 20 batteries, and you're not going to be doing 50,000 steps just in and out of respawn all day, because that's not how these type of events work. These type of events are generally slower paced, do have some very heated moments where you're under attack, or you're defending, or you're chasing, or you're being chased, or you're fighting for something, but it's probably going to be a 15-minute, 20-minute, half an hour battle, and then it will probably peter out. Everyone's going to have to pull back or do maybe respawn or medics, etc., to slow the game down. Generally, these type of events are not full-on, completely manic for hours and hours and hours non-stop, because they can't be. That's the difference between skirmish and Milsim, and anything kind of in between finds its own pace. We tend to find with the Battlesim stuff is some of the battles are maybe a little bit more intense and go a little bit longer and maybe a little bit more frequent than your Milsim stuff, but it depends on how the gameplay goes. We can plan and write any kind of game plan into the game, but it depends how the players want to play it as to how it goes. So as I was starting to say, is you do need different gear. The obvious thing is night events where you're planning on staying in the field all night. You need some form of sleeping kit. You need some form of cooking, and you need stuff to get you through the night, i.e. torches or something like that, fancy gear, etc. But that's obviously specific to the night events. Now, Iggy and I have done a video already where it was a bag explosion where you'll see a bit of a sleep setup, so that's already online from weeks ago. So I'm not going to be talking about sleep systems, cooking systems, etc., because that's not really what this video is. This video is, again, a little bit of a breakdown of the smaller kind of stuff you might be carrying. Now, let's start from the very beginning then. How are you carrying your kit? Now, one thing that has ruined events in the past is people trying to carry their whole backpack all day and not put it down. Now, that's crazy. Why would you put a backpack on your back that might weigh 20 kilos, might weigh 30 kilos, depending what you've packed, and not put it down for hours and hours and hours and hours on end? Any form of planning or management of a section of a team is you kick off and then you put your big pack down as soon as you can. And then all you're doing from there is carrying what you need for, let's say, the next 3 or 4 hours, maybe 8 hours. Now that only thing you need to be doing there is carrying maybe a spare battery, some gels, and some snacks. You don't need to be carrying your night gear, your sleeping gear, your cooking gear, none of it. So you need yourself a decent bag. This one's a bit big in my opinion, but it will definitely do the job. You don't have to fill it. And then you stash it somewhere as soon as you can. If you absolutely need to carry a pack through the day, you can carry something a little bit smaller. All right, this bag is a 511 Rush 24, so it's classed as a 24-hour bag. Still a bit too big for wearing all day, unless there's bugger all in it. But if there's bugger all in it, you don't need that size of bag. You'd be far better off with something like this one here. If I can get it off. Okay, much smaller pack. All right, has good expansion if you want to put a rain jacket or something in there. But this is literally just for a bit of extra water, some gels, some snacks. So this is barely bigger than a pack that's built in on the back of plate carrier. Okay, it can literally go on your plate carrier. So you really don't need a big bag throughout the day. All you're going to be carrying is your minimum of, say, 3 liters of water, which will probably be on your body anyway, not in a pack, and some other essentials. So let's talk about those essentials now. So I've got stuff everywhere here, but let's talk through it. So I would be carrying 1 spare battery. All right, now that is going to be Gelblaster specific. All right, now if you're running something that has a MOSFET in it, okay, even if you're not pulling your trigger, your MOSFET is absorbing some power from your battery. So you ideally need to know how long your blaster can last carrying it around, not using it. Because at a Milsim, Battlesim, Milsoft event, let's say you don't shoot your blaster for 2 hours. If you're running a blaster that does not have a MOSFET in it, if it's just a switch block, it is not chewing power while you're walking around cradling it. But if you're running something with a MOSFET, it is absorbing some power from your battery while you're not using it. So you need to know what battery usage you have. Now, generally a MOSFET is going to use less battery when you're firing it than a switch block, but it's using more battery when you're carrying it, not firing it, than a switch block. So you need to know your blaster and what you need to carry. So carrying 2 batteries is obviously not the end of the world. They're not big. You just need to have them stowed somewhere. Now, similar kind of story with gel balls. All right. In my Milsim gear, I will have my magazines filled, all right, across the plate carrier or whatever I'm carrying them in, and around about 700 mils worth of gels. Okay. Now, if I don't think I'm going to be getting back to my bag for several hours, I'll probably carry 2. All right, maybe a smaller one on the chest rig and this one in the bag. All right, now if that's simply not enough gels, then you're going to have to go back to your bag to get more. You can quite easily have a 2-liter bottle in your pack that you've stashed if you think you're going to need it. Now, speaking of gels, we've been to events where we've shot maybe not even that many gels all day. Or, you know, we've barely... I think I've been to an event where I fired through my 4 mags, so about 1,000 gels, and about refilled them once, and only used about 3/4 of those gels. So I've used about, say, 7 magazines worth of gels in a whole day. I've also been to events where I've almost pretty much run out of 7,000 gels in a day. And of course you can go to a skirmish event that these are not, and you can go through 5,000 in a day if you've been trigger happy. So the other thing you can quite easily do is, you'd have to carry the water to do it, but you can take a dry pack of gels, and then if you think you're getting pretty low on gels, you start to grow those, and then within 2 hours or so, they're ready to go. If you feel like you need more. Fortunately, gels are not expensive. You can chuck them out. It's not the end of the world. Speaking of, Summer Cat gels are only 6 packs of gel retail. If you've got your Royal Flush ticket, it's 5 packs, $5 per pack of gels. So we're talking less than half price than other brands. So that's gels pretty much done, all right? But speaking of the gels in your magazines, I never fill all my mags to start a game, all right? I'll fill 1 mag of gels that goes in my Gelblaster. So I've got about 250 gels ready to go. As a, desperately need it when you need it. If you are starting to see you've got a contact starting to build up, I'll top up or fill 2 more mags. So I've got 3 mags ready to go. All right. The reason why I don't fill them all straight away is gels are water-based. They dry out and their performance changes. And of course, they start to shrink over time. Now, Summer Cat gels actually are really good in that sense. They don't change too much too quick. And when they're in a sealed container, they actually last weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, as opposed to throw away the next day. But generally, I start with that one mag and fill it as I go. Now, I really don't recommend carrying more than, say, 4 magazines on you. If you're going to have to go through 1,000 gels in a single firefight, then you're quite simply going to have to grab your bottle of gels and top your mags up. It's really not necessary to be carrying real estate and real estate after real estate of gels, all right? So, for example, this Plat Attack Mark V rig, there's currently, I can easily carry 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 mags quite easily. But if I just carry 4, then I've got room for a bottle of gels, my radio, and anything else I want to put in there, your torches or anything like that. So you don't need to be carrying all those mags, especially if they're going to be empty. And the last thing you want to do is have them all full, because you're just going to be running rubbish gels that are dry and not working for you. Now, speaking of radio, radios in Milsim, Battlesim, Milsoft are one of those contentious points where not everyone needs to be talking on a radio all the time. Quite simple. But I honestly think everyone should have a radio on their person at all times. Now, the reasoning for that is if you're working with a lot of people running very basic radios, I'm going to use the Baofeng radio as an example, is you get a lot of junk in the air, in the radio waves. And radios are, they can often be picking up just non-stop channel hopping, cross-channel bleeding through different frequencies because of the radio performance, radio quality, and the antenna type. So the less people transmit, in my honest opinion, the better it is for the people that need to transmit. So who needs to transmit? Okay, so the times where I think a radio should be broadcasted on is game-specific stuff. So game control talking to other admin players, other admin. Faction commanders talking to game control. Faction commanders talking to section commanders. And section commanders, if they need to, issue a command or an order to their players on their section, if they can't tell them or say it verbally and then the message be transmitted. Not every single message needs to be given from the section commander to every player straight onto their radio or straight into their ear. Okay? A lot of the time it can just be passed down the line and continued on from there. It doesn't all need to be on the radio. Now, we all do it, but let's say you're creeping in the bush and you spot a guy 5 meters in front of you and you get on the radio, contact, 3 meters in front. That's all well and good. But what if 5 people have had contact at the same time? And now all of you jump on the radio, contact, 3 meters in front. No one's going to hear anything bar the very first transmission. If that, you're going to hear any, because when one transmits over the other, they all bug each other out. So, more so, I like to see radios used more so for super important stuff, stuff that can't be said in person, or a hand signal, or just something basics. All right. Now, with radios, as I said, I do like for everyone to have one on their person for emergency use. Or let's say something has happened. You're out of sight of a team player, or whatever situation where you can't say it verbally. You can't shout out, oh, roll my ankle, help me. Can someone just come over and help me, please? Jump on the radio. All right. So if you are carrying a radio, and if it is going to be on, let's say for a full 29 hours and an hour and a half prior because you've turned it on and all the anticipation of setting up, etc., radio checks, blah, 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 you need a radio that's going to last 30 hours. If your radio doesn't last 30 hours, you need to be carrying a spare battery. All right. Now, how long your radio lasts is going to depend on how much is being used. It might have a 50-hour standby time, which means it can stay on for 50 hours. But every time it receives a signal, every time you transmit a signal, every time it's receiving space junk from everyone else's radios bleeding across, it's using more power. So your 50-hour standby time might end up being 10 hours. So that's not going to get you through a 29-hour event. So you're going to have a dead radio. You've got to carry a spare. Now, generally, I'm going to say the bigger the radio, the bigger the battery pack. The better quality the radio, probably the less power it's using to do stuff, and probably the better quality of the battery. This one says it's a 25 milliamp battery. It's an ICOM, so it's probably a fairly decent specification. If your battery says it's, 4,000 milliamps and half the size of that, trust me, it's not. Can't be 4,000, it's not possible. There's a fuel tank size. You can't make it fit more in there than it can. So, if so be it, you might have to carry 2 spare batteries. Or you're going to have to go dark with no radio. Now, for individual players, not the end of the world. Although, we would like you to have a radio. For a faction commander or a section commander, you've got to have batteries. You've got to have working radios. The last thing we want is a faction commander running a little 1-watt GME radio with an antenna this long, expecting it to cover a 1,500 meter field with 30 meter tall trees. It's not going to work. If you're playing a role of comms, section commander, and our faction commanders, please have decent radio equipment. Even if it's a case of swapping a radio with one of your team members, if they're getting better signal than you are, maybe do a swapsy of radio or do a swapsy of role. All right. Now, I've discussed them before. This one is an ICOM IC41 Pro. It's about a $280 radio. It's 5 watt. It's the legal limit, so it's the same power as your $30 Battlesim. All right. Now, with your standard antennas, no radio is generally very good. We do run upgraded antennas. Oh, they're on here somewhere. Upgraded antennas for both IC41 and also the Battlefims. Now, it does make a huge difference in transmission signal and quality. But even if you buy yourself a fairly basic Uniden 5 watt radio, it will probably cover the whole field. If you buy yourself a $30 Battlesim with a long whippy antenna that's really annoying catching all the trees, it probably is worse than the factory antenna or no better than the factory antenna. Okay? Quality does definitely work. Battlefims can work, but they're not the best. All right, so let's move on. Second most important thing every player must be carrying is some form of basic first aid kit. All right? Now, this is not the first aid kit that the paramedic that we're paying $3,000 to come and look after you for is using. This is just what you need to get you through the event, okay? You shouldn't have to be supplying medical gear for your teammates. They should be carrying their own little medical kit. Doesn't have to be in a pouch. It can quite simply be a roll of tape, some band-aids or something like that. But common sense prevails. You're out in the bush. Basic snake bite kit. Basic alcohol wipes, band-aids, something a little bit bigger than band-aids, as in tape, because band-aids don't stick to shit. Bite cream, antihistamines if you're a sneezy person. If you get aches and pains, Panadol, ibuprofen, etc. In your first aid kit, everyone should have their knock form. Okay? So everyone should have on their person their next of kin. If you don't have a next of kin contact detail, then how is the medic or anyone looking after you at the event going to contact your family? Now, at all entries to all events, you will have signed a waiver and also given next of kin details. But it's one of those things. Have it on you, makes life that little bit easier. Now, part of your own medical kit and stuff like that, out of the bush, things get pretty steamy. At night, your glasses are always going to fog. So I'd highly recommend some form of anti-fog or lens wipes, just to help. A couple of these might get you through the night where you're struggling to see. At night, things always fog up. Speaking of safety glasses, now, one thing I carry from the start of the event is tinted safeties and clear safeties. I'll carry my clears even if I'm not wearing them for the whole event. For the simple reason if you leave these in your big bag that you stowed away or you hid or you put at your HQ kind of base first thing at the start of the game, if you don't get back there till after nightfall, and if you're still wearing your tinted glasses, you're not going to be able to see bugger all until you get back to your clear safety glasses. So I 100% either start the game carrying these or wearing them. If you wear clears the whole time, not a problem. If you need tints during the day, like I do, then you need to carry these. If I don't carry these from the start of the game, I'd be sure as hell put them on my person from lunchtime or early afternoon to guarantee I've got them on me by nightfall. All right, let's speak a little bit about dark. Okay, so one thing that a lot of people are in the mindset of that to play night games, you must have night vision or thermal optics to be able to play and compete. It's so untrue. To be honest, I would like to ban thermal and night vision because not everyone has it. And the people that don't have it think they're at a massively unfair advantage because they don't have it. Unfortunately, that's really not true. You don't have to have night vision or thermal to compete at night. For the simple reason is if someone is looking at you through night vision, you can quite easily blind them with a white light. You can quite easily carry a torch that is bright enough to floodlight the area and then their night vision be completely useless because you can see them anyway. Now, it's not ideal to walk around using a bright light. We all know that. Especially if the stars are out and if the moon's out. If you don't use a white light for 5 minutes or so, you will have really good night vision. But of course, if it's cloudy, chances are you won't. We will also be under tree canopy, so less light, more shadows. Now, there is of course advantages to night vision and advantages to thermal. And you can't deny that it takes the game into a different realm. It's cheat mode, it's a cheat code, but you don't need it by any means. Let's say, for example, you're on through the night. One of your roles might be you've got a 2-hour sentry duty or pickets or security role of your flag, your base. So let's say you're not going to leave the perimeter or the area of your base for some time. What's stopping you hanging up an LED floodlight? Or let me just grab something. What's stopping you from taking something like this onto the field that's not that big to carry, but this runs for about 6 hours and will light up the trees and give you quite a good floodlight around you. So if this was lighting up the trees for about 6 hours, and let's say your personal pickets is 2 hours, you got plenty of spare light for if you want to just sit with bright light on. Now, you having a bright light on obviously means anyone attacking you can probably see you as well, or give you a good idea of roughly where you are. But all's fair in lovers' war. You can see as well. They can see you. Even if they're watching you through night vision from outside of the light, if this light gives you enough light to be able to see them when they get within your 40-meter range of your Gelblaster, you're going to be able to shoot them. You don't need night vision and thermal. A little bit of a mild story for you. With a little thermal monocular like this one, it is pretty much useless to see the human body standing still until probably about midnight. For the simple reason is trees that are everywhere at Buccas Outpost and Milsim hold temperature to show us basically a white or the hybrid white-red dead straight post for around about 3 to 4 hours after dark. What color does a human body that is standing still create when warm through the night? A white or a hybrid white-red line. So if I was to stand dead still, particularly side on, to an enemy over here, if they're watching me through a anything bar, more of a basic thermal, so this is an $800 one, they can't see me because I look like a tree. Of course, when I move, they're going to see me, but depends on what they're looking at and what they're doing. So thermal is fantastic for picking up a heat signature that's different to trees while trees are warm. I hope that makes sense. Now, without using thermals and night vision, I would definitely recommend a basic torch, a weapon mounted torch, and then a little red light. Okay, now got some options here that are pretty simple. This one is wrong way around. This one is a pretty basic headlamp. All right, white light only. Obviously, if you want it red, you can put a balloon or texture over it. Very, very simple, very, very easy. Doesn't have to be bright, but you definitely don't want to be making white light all the time. But if you're doing something needing both hands, excellent. Very cool. Runs on AAA batteries. Make sure you have AAA batteries spare in your kit. If you don't have your AA's, of course, it's only limited to the time the batteries last. Now, torches. Again, I would highly recommend some form of light that has red on it. Okay? White, red, green, pretty handy as a one single unit. Now, why red light? Now, red light doesn't carry as far as a white light. It's nowhere near as bright to the extent where, it's only definitely a very short range setup, but it's ideal for map reading, looking at your person, and the light definitely does not carry as far as, a 1500 lumen white light. That's not to say it can't be seen. It's just nowhere near as obvious and nowhere near as bright. So something that has red on it and not so powerful is also ideal, like your headlight, for close quarters around you usage. But it's not going to do anything for floodlighting people. All right, now a basic weapon light is going to be very handy because you don't really want to be having to hold your Gelblaster in one hand and holding your torch. Yes, it can be done. Gelblasters are not that heavy, unless it's obviously a full-scale, big, heavy thing, but it's not ideal. So what is ideal is to have a basic little weapon light mounted to your blaster. So if you are having a bit of a night shootout, you can go hands-free on your light and just concentrate on what you're doing. But don't use this light all the time because white light is too bright. Now, the other thing is ideal, if you've got it, is something that creates a nice floodlight. Now, something like this is more of a permanent feature. A basic torch has got quite a broad beam. It's also ideal if you're floodlighting looking for someone, all right? Now, I'm not telling you to carry 5 different torches, 5 different white lights or whatever, but if you've got them, they do have different purposes. This one's a fairly long, skinny beam. This one, whilst it's 3 times as bright as this one, is a much broader floodlight. And then, of course, you can have pretty much identical power light, but this one carries several hundred meters, whereas this one's about 80. And it's all in the difference of the depth of the reflector. All right, so different torches, different things. This one is fantastic for looking through the trees a long way. All right. Do you really want to be carrying that, and all the other units? That's up to you. Probably not. But one thing that is also you've got to remember is, will they last the amount you plan to use them, or do you need spare batteries? Simple as that. A lot of the rechargeable ones, you probably won't have spare batteries. If it's an 18650 base torch, you can take a spare 18650 battery. None of those are. They're all proprietary batteries. All right, so that's pretty much it, I would say, for night specific stuff. The other ideals for going into the night will be all through the day out at Buccas. I would definitely recommend having a can of Bushman's on you, for the simple fact that we have had a lot of rain this year. There's no denying it. A little bit of history. When we first went to Buccas property 4 years ago, there was 2 huge dams on the property. Now I'm talking 250 meters from end to end. And the creek that through the left-hand side of the property was flowing at probably 5 meters across and maybe 2 meters deep. Until Christmas or so this year, when we went to December, the dams were both completely dry. Not a drop of water in them. And the creek was bone dry, just sand. All right. Now, since Christmas, we've had about 300, 400 mils of rain out there. And who knows if Alfred's giving some more. When we were out there 2 weeks ago, the dams were about 50 or 60 meters across and the creek was about 1 meter wide. So there's water out there, which means, of course, there's mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes are everywhere in Australia. Anywhere where there's water, there's mosquitoes. Bushman's does work a treat. Put it on your clothing. Put as little of it on your skin as you can. If you need to wear gloves to keep them off your hand, do it. Wear a shirt with a collar. Maybe not this one because it's ventilated with holes, but wear a snood that keeps stuff off your neck. Wear a bug net that keeps them off your face. It's not hard to beat mosquitoes, all right? You've just got to plan for it and be sensible. Now, they will bite you through your shirt if you don't have spray on it, all right? Or you need to wear an extra layer that's a little bit thicker to stop them getting through. You can get clothing these days that has mosquito repellent in it, but don't expect it to last forever. I would say 3 or 4 washes and it's not going to work anymore. This stuff definitely works. When we were out there 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of mosquitoes at specific times of the day in specific areas, but spray this over the shoulders, down the back, around the waist, around your ankles, keeps any ticks and creepy crawlies creeping up you. Keeps the mozzies off your back. Spray it on your hat. Don't spray it on your glasses. Don't spray it on your watch or anything plastic because it might affect the plastic. But without a doubt, it works. But it only lasts about 2 hours. And then you've got to top it up again. Once it dries out, it loses its effect. Quite simple. Now, not so much at Royal Flush in May, but the Mjolnir event late July, it will get very cold out at Buccas Outpost. And also the same for later in the year out at Milsim for Gelsim Ranch events. And one thing to remember is if you're playing through the night, there might be periods where you're standing still for a long time, or sit down and have a rest against a tree, or get in your sleep system and sleep. Now, early May, it's probably going to get down to maybe 5 degrees. It's not going to be overly cold, but you still need to have something to keep you warm when you're standing still through the night so you don't get cold. Late July, we've seen -5, -6 out at Buccas every year when we've been out there in late June through to August. It gets cold. Now, -5 isn't extreme cold, but if you're stood still for 10 minutes, holding your metal Gelblaster, you're going to get cold. You're going to be shivering, and you're not going to be able to do much about it unless you can wrap up warm. Even more so if you plan to sit down or lay down and sleep. You will get very cold very quickly. You'll need to have insulation under you from the floor. You'll need to have insulation on your body to keep you warm. So in May, I would suggest at least having a decent hooded jumper and maybe another thinner layer in between, so at least 3 layers on your upper body. Probably a beanie on your head to keep that warm when you're not moving around. If you're going to go back to the safe zone to sleep, then you can have anything you want there. Now, in July, if you're carrying all your gear from the get-go and you don't have the opportunity to get more because you can't enter the safe zone, you need to carry or be wearing all day a thermal underlayer, your normal play wear, a thinner jumper, or a thinner breathable layer. I would say a decent hoodie jumper and a jacket, and maybe even a wind cheater as well. So for me, as I said, a thermal shirt and then my game shirt throughout the day. If it's really warm, I'll have to take my thermal shirt off during the day and put it back on. Then I will probably have something like this jacket here, which I'm not going to take the whole thing out, but it's just a very thin, can't see how thick it is, but it's quite a thin down puffer jacket. All right, it's very small, it's thin, it's quite thin, but it's an air layer. You need air for thermal. It packs quite small in its own little bag. That I'll be putting on in the evening, and then I'll probably have a hoodie in there as well, or an actual soft shell jacket. Okay, and then if it's windy or cold, you're probably going to need a wind or water-based jacket as well to keep that cold air out. Now, people will get really cold really quick. I don't care what people say. -5, if there's a breeze, if you're not doing anything. For people that live in the climate of 25 normally, -5 is very cold. Now in July out there, we've had a temperature range of 21 to 25 in the day to -5 at night. And that change happens at 5 p.m. Can go from 20 degrees at 5 p.m. or 17 degrees at 5 p.m. to 10 degrees in the first hour. And then from there on, it will gradually creep down. I'm assuming most of you will know that around about 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning will be the coldest time. So if you're not wrapped up well and truly by then, you will get cold. All right, so we've shown sleep systems in our other video. That sleep system was for our event in May. You will be needing a sleeping bag in July if you're going to lay down and sleep for more than half an hour. You can't just take a thin summer sleeping bag. It will do nothing, okay? You will need a nice thick sleeping bag. You will probably also ideally then wrap yourself up in a ground sheet as well, which will simulate your wind cheater. You will need to be laying on a thermal mat of some form, whether it be an air mat that's a pain to pump up and deflate, or whether it be a thin foam yoga style mat from Kmart, which will probably do bugger all and it's a nuisance to carry, but it's better than nothing. You will get colder through the floor than you will through the air. All right, so that's night pretty much done. Let's talk a little bit more about a few other bits and pieces of gear. So all events worldwide, it is pretty much mandatory to have a dead rag. Okay, now I can't say this for, suits me, I can't say this for all events, but generally, once you are dead, you need a dead rag. You need a means of telling people you're out of the game. Now, once you're dead, you shouldn't be standing there just in the way, because if there's a guy over here trying to shoot at a guy over there, you're in the way. Sit down, lay down, larp it out, scream, cry, as if you're still dying. Or quite simply move a few meters that way to get out the way. If you don't have a dead rag, generally a lot of events don't supply them. You're supposed to supply it yourself. At Buccas events, because it's a Battlesim, and we have a lot of players that it's their first ever Milsim, we supply everyone a dead rag. We supply everyone with the white rags, and we supply the medics with their medic rags. Different rules, different events. You'll find some events, i.e. the Mjolnir events, they use a tourniquet as their medic rags. They supply them at their event. If you've already got one, you don't necessarily need to take another one because you don't need a dozen of the things. But one thing that you should definitely do as part of your prep for an event is when you're given your tourniquet first thing in the morning, it will be probably in a plastic sealed packet. You know, I don't know, something like that. That is not how you put it on your person. So take 2 seconds to prepare it by literally just looping it back through, having it ready to go, so that when you pull it out of your pouch, when you're shot at an event, it's really easy for your buddy aid player to put it on you and get you back in the game. You don't have to fumble around putting it through the loop, all right? That's pretty basic. Common sense, but not everyone has it. So as I said, Mjolnir supply these at their events. Not sure about Gelsim Ranch events. We supply the white rags and the orange rags to the medics at our events. Now, finding your way around the field, we will be issuing the map layout of the field that shows boundaries and then the main features of the field with a grid reference that we supply, which will be required and used for the missions that we organize. Now, if you don't have overly good sense of direction, you either need a compass on you or some means of telling which direction you're going. Obviously, a lot of watches these days have the compass on them, which is all well and good if you know how to use your compass. If you don't know how to use your compass, then not much good for you. What is this? It is battery orientated. If you're wanting it to track your steps and all that kind of stuff, then it might kill the battery. I would highly recommend having a hard, physical, proper compass on you as well. Also, I would highly recommend a notepad and a pen to get you through the event. You might have to write down details. You might have to copy some intel that you have found if you're not allowed to take it. And it's just common sense to have something writable on you. Absolute minimum, have there's one in one of these rigs here, I can't remember, have a Sharpie, a texter with you. And then again, if at absolute bare minimum, if you need to write something down, write it on the back of your hand. Okay? All right. Now, carrying your blaster, your rifle, whatever it is around the field, you really are going to want to have a sling on your rifle. The heavier your gat is, the more you need a sling. Okay? Now, slings are amazing in that you can just hang the gun around your shoulder, over your neck, and go hands-free. They can be a bit of a pain when it comes to in contact. So it's one of those things you need to kind of practice with it, get used to it, understand how it works. Sometimes in a firefight, it comes off the body, just dangles from the blaster, because that way I can easily put the blaster down if I need to. There is some insanely expensive slings out there. There is some very cheap slings out there. There is some moderately priced, decent quality copies of the very highly priced slings out there. Now, there's thousands of them. It's like car tires. There's thousands of different types and brands. They all look like they do the same thing, but it's entirely up to you. You know, some people are very brand myopic. They only want one thing. Others just have bought what works and still use it. I've genuinely got, that one I just showed you was a 511. I've genuinely got probably 5 other slings, and they all work. They're just all different. So you just got to get used to what you want to use. Now, back to blasters for a little minute. Lightweight is going to be your friend, okay? By all means, carry around your metal M249 or M60 or whatever you've bought from the gelball shops because it's super cool, but it's going to hurt you after a while for no real advantage. I know at Mjolnir events they do have different roles for like machine guns, etc., where you have to run M249 or something like that with a box mag. You can't run an M4 with a box mag. So there's different advantages to different blasters. Definitely, you know, pays to read the rules and understand that. But the lighter the blaster is, the more friendly it is for you to carry around. So this one is generally my Milsim blaster. Having said that, this one has been to every Milsim I've ever played at, whether I've used it or whether someone else has used it. It weighs about half a kilo more than this one. So a little bit of weight makes a difference. It's probably more than that, to be honest. I would generally recommend not super high performance, as in fast rate of fire, and you don't need to maximize your feet per second. The gels being the limit of what we can do with firing, I always recommend it around about 320 feet per second is your maximum. And on full auto on an 11 volt battery, 20 rounds a second is too much. If you shoot on burst, you get a few gels in the air, that's great. But if you want to shoot on full auto, you're going to use too many gels for what you're trying to do. The less gels you can carry, the less gels you shoot, because your blaster doesn't run super fast, the better. All right. Now, I would highly recommend, as I said, starting out the game with your main Milsim blaster that you've built specific for events. But my suggestion would be to have a spare blaster that is almost completely standard and not highly stressed. Doesn't have to be unmodified, but I'm referring to not increased FPS, or maybe decreased from factory, not faster rate of fire and fancy MOSFETs and things like that, because small things make things less reliable. This, for example, is a completely stock G36 from Watt International. Only difference is the full bridge is gone and I've lost the charging handle, but it's completely stock, bar an aftermarket barrel to suit hopper. And it's just super reliable, performs every bit as good as my modified blasters in what I need them for a Milsim, and in my head should just be that tad more, less stressed, more reliable. The one thing I generally, personally, now this is me personally, don't recommend for a Milsim is HPA. Now, that's not to say people don't use them and haven't had a lot of success with them and haven't had issues, blah, blah, blah. HPA is getting more and more popular in general because it, in theory, is more long-term reliable than AEG. My only catch is the airline dangling. Now, if you haven't been out to Buccas, there's a lot of branches. There's a lot of stuff to catch that airline on. The last thing you want is to be tearing the airline out the bottom of your gun, getting caught on it, having to backtrack, pulling things off your backpack. So HPAs are fantastic, and if you're running a bottle off the back, obviously you're eliminating this issue. But my personal preference is this just creates an extra hazard on the field. For, again, my opinion, my experience, HPA doesn't bring any more performance than a good AEG. It just changes the long-term reliability, in theory. You still have to do maintenance on them. Now, grenades. Absolutely bring your Thunderbees, all right? We love Thunderbees out at Buccas. They create that sound, the realism, the immersion, as people say, of a battlefield. Love, love, love Thunderbees. But please be prepared, you might lose it, okay? When these burst, the core can shoot off in any direction and vanish. It's just quite simple. They vanish and they break. All right. This thread in here can strip. This thread here can strip. They just break. They're a high pressure thing. They die. I highly recommend having a tag or some form of visible thing on it for when it does shoot off or when it explodes. Otherwise, you won't find it. And hopefully it means if someone does pick it up, they're not just going to go, and pocket it and keep it because someone's gone to the length of trying to identify it. Now on this one somewhere, oh yeah, you won't see it, but on the inside here, I've got TSI scratched in there. So hopefully it means someone's not going to steal it. People do steal people's stuff. Spring grenades, fantastic. Definitely bring spring grenades, but you must have gels in them. You can't throw a spring grenade with no gels in it and expect people to take a hit, because you've got to have gels in it for it to be classed as a working grenade, not just a piece of plastic that you just threw the trees. All right, same deal again. If you're throwing this thing 20 meters through the trees, have a coordinate so you can see where it's gone. Put your details on it so you can see who owns it. All right, things vanish, people pick them up and they think, oh, I'll keep that for myself, and stuff gets missing. Now, they all have the same hit radius. That's all in the rules. Read it, understand it. The other things out there is small launcher-based grenades. This one's got balls on it, or you can get the 3D printed darts. All of the 3D printed darts must be assessed by me at the event. They need to be soft. They can't have a hard edge on them. We had one found at the property. Could have been there after Viper's Fury. Could have been there from Blood Brothers. I don't know. But it was a homemade version of a tag-in round. And it was literally hard cast. It was rock hard. If you banged it on something, it was hard. Okay? Not allowed. They've got to be soft. Same for mortars or shoulder-fired rockets that guys make that are generally CO2 powered or green gas powered. The shell itself, the mortar itself, they're generally Nerf throwy thing size. 3D printed in the soft, flexible, rubbery 3D print stuff. Must be soft on all edges. Can't have a hard or a sharp edge. If you have whistles built into them, they must be soft around them. They must have a soft edge protecting them. If you've got fins and flights off the back of it, they must be soft. Got to be soft enough that it can come in or fly in at a person tumbling on any direction and not have a sharp edge that's going to hurt them on the face, you know, do something nasty. They launch at quite a rate of knots. Let's say they go up 50 meters and they fly 150 meters. They're going to come down at 50 miles an hour. It's got to come down like a soft ball, not like a rock hard rugby ball that smack you on the side of the head and could knock you out at that kind of rate of knots. All right. Now, I think that's pretty much me done. Now, we've spoken about it before and I'll say it again. My honest recommendation for events, do I have anything else hidden around there? Not really. My honest recommendation for events is don't wear a heavy plate carrier. All right. At Buccas, we do have the extra medical bandage life for guys wearing minimum 5 kilos of plates. Does not include your gear. It's just your plates. My honest recommendation is to wear a chest rig. The smaller, the lighter, the better. But real estate certainly helps. This one's the Platatech Mark V. This one's a Viper utility rig with pouches. This one obviously has more real estate, has more area for carrying stuff. They both have a backpack. This one's got the extended antenna built into it, going up the back here. This one's the one I take to New Zealand for airsoft. I don't need to carry much. This one's my Aussie Milsim rig. I don't wear a plate carrier for Milsim. I don't need to exhaust myself with that extra weight for that extra life. I would rather be faster, quicker, you know, high speed, low drag without that extra life. So that's just my personal recommendation. But tinker with your gear, play with it before you come out to the field. Lay it all out, think about it. There's lists out there, watch the videos, see what you're missing, see if you're carrying too much. There's no harm in a handful of cable ties. Some black tape if you need it, although if you've always got tape in your bandit in your first aid kit, you can tape stuff back up. Small stuff like that, cold weather, you're sleeping, you're eating, you're drinking, you need stuff, all right? Your big bag just might not be big enough by the time you've got it all. Stuff will build up very quick. People claim that they're all they're going to carry is 10 kilos. It's really not possible if you're carrying, sleeping stuff. So I'm pointing up here because that's where it is. Sleeping stuff and cooking stuff, eating stuff, drinking stuff, all your spares. It's got to be more than 10 kilos. You're going to have 10 kilos on your person. The last thing you want, though, is to be putting 40 kilos in your bag on your back. I do know that the only all-night event I've done, which was a 2-night event, Operation Tempest by Comsims in 2010, my backpack, which was just this one, was too heavy. All right? I had my sleeping mat off the bottom. I had my sleeping bag on the top. Had tent off the side here. The bag was full of everything I needed. It was too heavy. We had about a kilometer, maybe 2K, I don't remember, hike at the start. And whilst that isn't very far, it was too heavy for me to be comfortable and on ball. Obviously, I carried it where I needed to carry it, and I set up my gear where I needed to set up my gear, but it was uncomfortable for the time I carried it. Now, that's probably normal. I don't know. I've not done military stuff. The guys that are carrying all the gear is probably 50 kilos, 60 kilos. Don't need that. I'm not going out there and potentially dying in this game. I'm going out there to want to have fun, and less gear is more fun, as long as I've got what I need. Well, that's about it. The wind seems to have dropped a little bit. Can't hear any rain lashing against the garage door that I could about 20 minutes ago. So I'm going to go and stitch these videos together, tidy up all the junk I've got around me, and I'll post this video for you. So if you have any questions, hit me up, send us a message. Yeah, let's get it done. So again, Royal Flush, 3rd and 4th of May, theweekendwarrior.com.au. Tickets are for sale, $140. Free camping Friday night, Saturday night, free camping Sunday night. Monday's a public holiday, so we go home Monday late morning. We would ask you, welcome you, plead for you to stay Sunday night. That means you're not rushing home after the event, tired and all that kind of stuff. We had a massive campfire, massive campfire on the Sunday night that we can all sit and chill and hang around. Event crew and myself, we will still be packing up the event until dark, but that way we don't have to necessarily do it Monday morning. We have paramedics coming. We've got at least 4 portaloos, more if we need them. Yeah, we want you to come and enjoy the weekend. Play as much as you can play. One point that people keep whinging about is where I have put on the requirements for the event, you need to be able to walk 10 kilos carrying minimum 10 kilos of gear. I don't know why people seem to think that that is a hard requirement, and that's bullshit. But quite simply, if you can't go right now or at the start of the event with all your gear on, carrying 10 kilos of gear, which, as we just said, could easily be 30, plus your Gelblaster, walking around like a little miniature army man, if you can't do 10Ks with 10 kilos of gear, this is not the event for you. It is not safe for you to be at these events if you can't do that. Some events is a minimum requirement where if they visibly look at you and think you can't do it, you're out. Okay, if you've bought your ticket, no refund, you can't make the event. We don't want to do that. That's just not kosher these days. But if you feel like you can't walk 10 kilos at the start, 10Ks at the start of the event carrying weight, the event is not for you. As simple as that. All right, thank you. See you when we see you, hopefully, at Buccas Outpost for Royal Flush. Hope Alfred's been good to you and not been nasty. Take care, guys. See you later on.